How far away are we from a completely autonomous AI customer support travel agent?
Okay, great question. I would say you could like that could be a this year thing, easily.
What? All right, so this week we have a very special guest, a repeat guest, if I may add. We have Jason Skipper. Go ahead and say hello, Jason.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here. Sorry that I missed. I'm kind of. In one hand, in one sense, I upgraded. I went from just a guest. I don't know. There's two of us now. Am I a co-host temporarily? Is there what's happening here?
You know what? Actually, we're actually going to shed the guest title for today and we're going to make you the co host because if you're listening, you're going to hear one voice absent for today, and that is Connor Ann. She is sick as a dog. She cannot appear on a podcast. And so today we have Jason Skipper subbing in for Connor Ann.
Not a sufficient sub. I'll do what I can. Certainly, give me some slack, but I'll do what I can.
Totally. Well, if there's one thing, I just wanted to share a story that I think that I've told like 10 people, and all 10 people were like, just they kind of like laughed their butts off. But me and Skipper hung out. He had a little birthday holiday party thing. And I ventured the 7-hour drive from Disney World to Lake Mary, Florida. And his son, TC, probably one of the coolest high school kids I've ever met in my life. If you want parenting advice, you should contact Jason Skipper and his wife Kimmy because they did an amazing job raising this kid. But he did one of the funniest things that I've ever seen. We were sitting by the pool. Jason has a really cool backyard. It was Florida. There was a chill in the air. What'd you say? It's like 58, 60 degrees. People
It
were
was
wearing
cool.
sweaters.
Yeah. The
It was
heater
cool.
was on. There was a heat lamp on too. Yeah.
That's correct. When the heat lamp comes out in Florida, you know it comes out around 60 degrees too, which is a little
Right.
fishy. But one of the one of the coolest things that I've ever seen is I don't know how it came up or the origin of it, but I bet TC that he wouldn't fall backwards into the pool. And in my mind, I was like, $20 is probably fine. But then I asked them, I'm like, I bet you $50 you wouldn't fall backwards into the pool. The kid did not even think for a second. He puts his arms up like this and just straight up falls backward into the pool, fully clothed in front of a party full of adults. Everyone looks, and I was like, instantly, I got out my Venmo. I Venmo Jason $50, and I checked in on the money this morning. And what did he do with the money?
Yeah, so he put it right in the bank. He doesn't spend his money. He tends to spend mine and Kim's and keeps his tucked away safely. So he's a smart kid indeed.
Smart kid. Yeah. If you get some money from the tooth fairy, don't be spending that.
Right?
Just, you got mom and dad. So this is for all of our non-existent kids that listen to, this is not a podcast for kids. So I don't know why I'm even giving advice to kids. But anyway, the topic of today that I wanted to explore was really artificial intelligence. So Jason runs a large engineering team at a publicly traded company, and they do a lot of stuff with AI. So naturally, Jason being super smart and curious, he is really at the front lines of the application of using AI in a business, right? So a lot of times when you hear people talk about artificial intelligence, they're talking about it in theory, or they use Chat GPT's like chat interface, right? And that's really, you're just scratching the surface. And we encourage everyone to basically like understand it and get familiar. But Jason did something super cool with reading license plates and AI, and I would love for you to run the audience through exactly what you did and kind of your reactions to it.
I keep up with the whole Chat GPT world. They're leading the effort in terms of at least notoriety about AI, right? And one of the things they came out recently is a Chat GPT store, right? So they haven't really publicized how they're going to monetize it, but they put some tools out for people to play with. And one of the things that we have at our work is a regular kind of REST set of APIs for searching for license plates from license plates that have been read by our cameras. And so I took that REST API, literally the spec for those that are kind of techie out there, the Open API spec. I just took that and basically pasted it into this new custom GPT they have. And I gotta say, like, what happened next to me feels a little bit like a discovery, like a oh my gosh moment. Okay, because I've been typing, asking it questions. My son has used it to ask questions. We've all played with it, but now here's a utility that I feel like I just witnessed that is amazing. So what is that? Well, once it read this API in, which had a decent description about each of the methods and their parameters, I could then basically tell it, hey, you're going to be my little detective, and I'm going to ask you questions about vehicles, and you need to tell me where they've been, and you can use this API to find them. And the amazing part is that once it digested this, and I literally asked it a question like, I'm looking for a bad guy with this license plate. It knew how to take from my conversation any details that I gave it, such as a license plate or the time, or maybe a color of the car, and it plucked it out of the conversation, knew what parameters to put into the API, called the API, automatically understood the content that came back, and presented it to me in sometimes a reformatted way, or sometimes it would summarize or highlight the interesting parts. So I could ask it things like, when would be the best time to find this bad guy? And it would go search for it and then look for it and summarize and be like, oh, it looks like next Tuesday based on how we've seen it at 4 o'clock by 4:34. So like, wow, that it's interesting that it's able to make those calls and do the work. But the amazing part is that there's no sewing together of my conversation to bits of words to an API and then having to kind of tie that back. As developers, that's like a lot of the work is integrating in these APIs to give utility. And this was just like magic. It just happened. I don't know. It was pretty fascinating to me.
That's insane. So this thing, you didn't really. What would be the total time that it took to set this up?
I'll kind of like give it a little extra in that the authorization of this API had a little funkiness to it. It wasn't like standard auth token kind of thing. So that was the biggest trip up, was this API was not a standard one that I was working with. But once I made it standard, it was literally like 5 minutes. Drop in the spec, give it a little discussion, and off it went. Literally engaging with my APIs and trying to find value right away. So this is like scratching the surface. I imagine if it's something that was like super complex, like maybe like booking travel, where there's a whole set of APIs with specific business rules and interactions between them, I imagine it might take a little bit longer, or maybe the capability isn't quite yet once the system of APIs gets too complex. But what this tells me is, if I can do this in 5 minutes today, then looking ahead 6 months, 1 year, the one person CEO company that can just take a bunch of APIs and throw it at something and say, I want you to use these in this way and build me this business, we're very close to that, I feel like.
Jeez. And when you showed this off internally, what was the reaction? Because sometimes in corporate America, what happens is people show new things and then like the product roadmap is set, there's other priorities. So sometimes I feel like these things go one of two ways. It's either people are like, oh shit, we should drop everything and pursue this. Or people are like, oh, that's a nice parlor trick, right? Like, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was your reaction?
Yeah, so as I shopped it around, I think the devs kind of got the magic of like, oh my gosh. So you gave it a spec and then you could just like conversationally interact with your APIs. So any developer I told about it, I kind of got a whoa, that's pretty cool. Any like product person or marketing or sales, it was I think the envelope of AI has overwhelmed them, and at this point it's like it's all just AI. Okay, we have AI, we don't need any more AI. So I think it's one of those things, like most, they start with the really tech heads that kind of see the value and the acceleration that it can give them. But we don't have any plans to use it. This was me playing around, right? It was like an afternoon of just screwing around that then I got to shop around. But I think there's some developers out there that maybe have some side projects now that are like, oh, I think I'm going to play with that now. So that's how it starts.
Okay, let me ask you this. Since you're really on the front lines of this, I want to pontificate a little bit and I want to give you a use case and then you will do a little like scoping live. You could tell me what is the timeline for something like this to exist in the world? Are you good with that?
Sure, sure. Let's do it.
Okay, all right. So I am interested. One of the big complaints that we have in the corporate travel management world is really the only reason that I've seen consistently why big legacy players lose customers is typically customer responsiveness to issues, right? So travel is a very low margin business. The expectations of travelers are super high, right? So like they want everything instantly. They want their things being taken care of. Sometimes they want things that are outside of the technical capability or what's business responsible of an airline or a hotel. And so the number one reason that companies in travel lose customers is customer responsiveness, especially when there's issues. I am thinking that AI is going to step in and solve this. So my question is, when is there going to be an AI customer service agent that can A, talk to you on the phone like a normal human being like you and I would, and then B, intelligently manage your reservation or travel issue within a GDS. And those of you who don't know what a GDS is, it's the terminal in which travel agents use to book and change and manage flights. So when is the AI going to almost replace a customer service agent with voice, with possibly even looking at them if you wanted to video chat them, and then with using the terminal? So how far away are we from a completely autonomous AI customer support travel agent?
Okay, great question. I'll try and break it down into pieces, and we'll add it up and see
Okay.
where we're at. So first, if you look like the technology, like you said, talking, right? So it's got to talk to you. Text to voice, done a long time ago, not a problem, right?
Mm.
So no problems there. Then you get into, all right, you're going to, and this touches on what sort of I discovered with the Chat GPT world. You're going to need to take contextual clues out of a conversation, data, and if there's missing data, ask for that data and get it. Which, by the way, it did. I did a test where I said, I need to find this car. And then it was like, well, can you tell me the license plate? So there it is, like understanding an API and asking for what it needs. So I feel like that capability, I saw it happen in front of me. Conversationally, we haven't pushed it to a high complexity. So I think that there could be some time delta there it's like magic, right? There's some complexity that it can handle, and then after that, it would probably fall to pieces. So, let's give that in terms of technology to mature, given that it's an open system and people are literally creating these chat GPT, custom GPTs already. I can't imagine it taking more than maybe 3 to 6 months to grow that capability into something that can use a complex set of APIs. And so once you have that, and then to your other point, which is like maybe video, where it's like a person that looks like a person that's talking to you. Well, we've already seen that out there. I mean, in every,
Yeah.
That exists today. It gets better and better. It gets less roboty and more, fluid. So again, you're talking about these technologies, they all exist today in some form. So you're really not talking about breaking down some new barrier, kicking down some wall that, some problem that you got to beat. You're talking about a maturity and growing of existing things today. And given sort of the exponential ramp that we're feeling here, I would say you could, like, that could be a this year thing, easily.
What?
Yeah.
So do you think that you're going to call Delta or American when you have to change a flight day of travel and you're not going to speak to a human, you're going to talk to someone who is an AI?
Well, so I would say this, those sound like some old guards, and I imagine they don't move as quickly as maybe an all-fly might. So I think, yes, there will be companies that will be offering this type of service in some capacity this year. We got 12 months. We're in February. We've got 10, 11 months ahead of us here. I think it could happen. Yeah.
Really? You're talking about inside of a year, even if we pushed out to two, you think that there's going to be an AI customer service agent that can not only talk with you, understand your issue, but then also resolve your issue? Like, okay, I'll go ahead and cancel your ticket and then rebook you.
Right. So now I'm gonna put a little caveat out there, right? So that again, the
All right.
complexities of the APIs. So you talked about, like a travel agent today, they're command line interfacing to these things.
Yeah.
So there may be some gaps there in terms of like, well, if I can create an API that does everything I want, which you look today, there's new players out there coming out with a set of APIs to do just those kinds of things. So once everything kind of bubbles up to a REST API level, there's nothing stopping it, in my opinion, other than a company having the balls to go for it. I think you start small with small features like, let me cancel your flight and rebook. That's what I can do, and if I can't do that, I'll send you somewhere else, kind of stuff. But yeah, it's going to happen. There's nothing preventing it. A year ago, the whole like talking to getting a conversation, and extracting the data and calling the right APIs, that seemed like a seriously complex, difficult problem. But I've witnessed it, so nah, man, it's happening.
Oh my God, that would be a game changer for travel companies, 100%. And just for the customer experience, like one of the weirdest things about travel and one of the most frustrating is when there's meltdowns that happen, it affects masses of people. So one of the most annoying things that goes down is there's a weather event and there's 25,000, people stranded in the Northeast and they can't get out. And then they all hit the phone lines to talk to someone at Delta, and Delta doesn't have enough agents. But if you can spin up thousands of AI travel agents to field those inquiries, it's a different game. I mean, that would change everything on the service
Yeah.
side.
I mean, the
Oh my God.
economics of that sound incredible to me. And so I would be surprised if someone's not working on this while we're talking about it right now.
Jason and I just ran the math. Some of this is shocking. All right. So we just asked an AI, Google Bard, which is my preference over Chat GPT these days, to be candid with you. The average salary of a travel agent in the United States is $46,000. Now, it says that there's about 100,000 travel agents. I would say a fair amount of them work at the airlines, on customer service desks and all that stuff. So in theory, that $46,000 is a hard cost to the company. So I asked the AI, what would happen if I made an AI travel agent to replace the human and I charged $10,000 a year to run this service? What would happen if I had an order to replace 3,000 travel agents? How much would I make? So the math is actually pretty easy. I would do $30 million a year in revenue, which
And that,
is an incredible thing. Like, to your point, is someone working on this? If they listen to this and they're like, wait a second, so all I have to do is get one or two airlines to
yeah.
basically like pilot this thing, and the airline would save 80% of their costs in theory, right? Their customer satisfaction would go way up, and you, the business owner, would make
Yeah.
eight figures.
And it's a $4 billion market, so you're just capturing like 3% of that in your scenario there. Like, there's a whole lot more pie to go after because no one has it. It's so wow. That's compelling. And this is what in the back of my head when I think about these scenarios, and like other ones come to mind, like truck drivers. They're automating them. Like, there's going to be whole industries that just get fully automated out now. Truck drivers, now they're like, it's like capacity, and I guess this would be the same thing. You would probably still keep a certain capacity of airline people in your organization to handle those really tough problems, and smack the AI when it does something wrong. But it's going to be a consolidation inside of an industry that'll be like 80% consolidation, and that's just wow.
It's kind of incredible. It makes you want to think like, oh, side project, just a little side project that could generate anywhere from 10 to $30 million in reoccurring annual revenue. Yeah, sure. You could make a pretty good life on that. Let me ask you this. Are there any other things in the AI world that have caught your attention as of late?
We had the CES show not too long ago, and one of the things that popped up there was they got a lot of play, and I actually went for $200. You can pre-order the thing now, and it's called, I think it's Rabbit. I can't remember. It's Rabbit R1 or something like that. It's a little device. It's got a little camera on it and a couple little buttons, and it's got a SIM card in it, so it's got cellular connectivity. And the idea is it's an AI assistant. So it's supposed to do things for you, not just like Bard, you're going to ask it questions. So you could do things like pull out your little AI device and be like, hey, book me a table of four at, so-and-so restaurant tomorrow night at 7:30. And it just does that. And so they're,
No.
yeah, so they're just going down this list of like things they want to do. And they have a sort of plan there. One of the things in the list is a travel assistant. So, who knows? Maybe they're hammering away on it now. Now that in the crazy backwards world that we live in, they're going at it with a hardware device. I applaud the when there's phones out there running apps and things like that. I don't know how successful they're going to be. I applaud the gumption to be like, we're going for it, and it's cute. It got me to pre-order one, but the AIs that are coming to take everyone's jobs probably aren't going to arrive in little batches of hardware, but this one's pretty cool.
That's cool. I will say I take your ability to predict the future to heart because back in, was it 2020? Jason used to work for us many moons ago, and he ran our software team. And we were doing a deal with Singapore Airlines. And this was right in not even the beginning of COVID. This was the whispers of COVID.
Alpha.
Alpha, right? And we were all supposed to go to Singapore, and because we were going to be part of the Singapore Airlines accelerator, we were going to install a custom piece of software within Singapore. It was going to be a really big deal, and we were going to have to go and basically live in Singapore and work in their office and stuff. It was a really cool opportunity. And it was probably January. We were scheduled to go in February. So like COVID hasn't really hit, but Skipper has been tracking this. And we roped him into going since he leads the team. And I remember that he called me. He's like, hey, dude, I cannot go. And I was like, and I was like, what? And he's like, this COVID thing is going to be everywhere. And at this point, there was like a few cases you hear, and it wasn't in America. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's going to be everywhere. And he called it. The first person, even before the news was calling it, Jason Skipper called it. And he's like, yeah, well, it spreads at this rate. So it's going to start with one person, then go to four, then 4 to 8, then 8 to 32. And he literally called it. And our program got canceled by Singapore Airlines, the in-person portion, when there was 9 infections inside of Singapore. And eventually those 9 infections turned into hundreds, into thousands. And then basically the remaining 2 years after that was really history. But Skipper, I will give you your flowers. You did call it very early.
Thank you. Now, I can't divine things out of thin air. I'm as good as the data that I receive. And in that case, I'd worked in Singapore before. And so I had buddies out there, and so I was communicating and hearing the on the ground story. And that's, in the end, business anywhere, you get the data and then you know what I mean? And things were, the news is always behind, right? And the things I was getting off the feet on the ground was like, oh no, everything's going to get shut down. And then if Singapore is doing that, as you know, very large metropolitan with a few aircrafts that come in and out of it, if they're talking about locking down, I was like, oh my gosh. But of course I had like great information looking back. Like I should have immediately gone and placed a whole bunch of shorts and all kinds of things. But, I'm just
you had the chance. You had the chance to never work again with that insight too. You could have put a short on every airline and hotel stock, and you would have been a very wealthy man.
Yeah, we got to execute. It's not enough to know.
I know. Okay, in terms of predictions, let's actually end the show with this. Look into your crystal ball and give me 1 or 2 predictions in the AI world that you think will come true in the next 2 years.
Okay, AI predictions in the next 2 years. I think We spent an enormous amount of time talking about one of them, I think, which is the assistant and the assistant to do things for you. So here's a piece of hardware that I pre-ordered, but it's going to come in the form of software and be ubiquitous. The assistant that can do anything for you, but it's going to start with specific ones. So in the next 2 years, I would say travel assistant has got to be in there, man. Could even be like a financial assistant too. I'm sure that they're trying, and both industries have all kinds of laws and regulations that they'll, slow things down as best they can with. So I would say one is that sort of assistant. And the other is already sort of happening as well. But it'll just be more and more prevalent. Is driving, right? So from autopilot on cars, I think the big one that's going to land that has landed and is going to start impacting, I would say, is in transportation, big trucks that patrol travel. They're already doing test drives across the country without a driver. So. Those types of big industry changing impacts that come from AI, we really haven't seen them yet, right? Like, name me the industry that is decimated by AI right now. It's not there yet, but I think in the next 2 years, they're going to start dropping. It's getting to that point, so.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. The man is good at predictions. I have seen it over the course of knowing him for the last few years. He's very good. And that's going to wrap up our show. Skipper, if you want to hang on afterwards, just hang tight here. Thank you guys for listening. Sorry that you had to suffer through that without Connor Ann. She's so much more charming than the two of us. Right? But I think, you know what? You did a good job stepping in. So thank you for your time. Of course, if you guys want to know anything, if you guys want to write us at hello@travelnerds.co, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Later, nerds.